All right, so we now know what our round of 4 is going to look like, folks, and we are approaching 30,000 concurrent viewers. We would very much appreciate it if you got on Twitter or whatever social media and let people know that this tournament is going on. It's a lot of fun. It's obviously a little bit laid back, casual, but we're getting to see some really cool builds and a little taste of what what Legacy of the Void might actually end up being. Yep. When played by high-level Koreans. I mean, bear in mind, this is a bunch of people that haven't really played much of this at all. So there's a lot of potential for development and really cool builds and strategies going into this next expansion. So please do let people know that this is going on. Would be really pleased to break 30,000 concurrents for a tournament with no prize pool. I mean, it's hard to really complain about that. So that's value right there. That's almost infinite value. And we now know what the round of 4 is going to look like. We have a PvZ and a PvT. So those thinking it was going to be an all-Terran, no. 3 out of 4 Terrans eliminated in the first round. We are left with only a single Terran remaining, but perhaps the deadliest. Hart will be taking on Crank in a PvT, and Alicia will take on Impact in another PvZ, which was a really fun match, actually. Alicia versus Maya was really fun. Alicia versus Impact should be even better, because Impact evidently understands how to actually play Legacy of the Void, and he knows what the Ravager does, so Alicia's going to have his work cut out for him.
Yes, that's kind of the bare threshold. If you can make your opponent's life miserable in Legacy of the Void, all you need to know is, what does the Ravager do? And we will hopefully see him use that to great effect. Yep. Ravager very strong in Zerg versus Protoss.
Yep. Because I would not like to lose our current viewer count, because we always drop about 2,000 every time we take a break. If you don't mind, we're not going to take a break. Are you okay with that?
I don't need a break.
I don't need a break. Who needs a break? Breaks for weakness.
You think I'm casual?
Sorry, I heard you were transitioning to Skillstone. Is that happening?
Wow! Where'd you hear that from?
I got sources, man. I got sources.
Okay. Skillstone.
Passion Stone.
Passion Stone. Yeah, I heard a lot of Passion Stone. I guess that's the European name for it. Zanster and Harstem.
Yeah.
I think that's all they called it.
Yeah, which
Passion
is
Stone.
ironic, because in about 3 months they'll probably go and play Heroes of the Storm. We need one for Heroes of the Storm. No one's come up with one yet. We got Cardstone, Skillstone, Passion Stone, but what about Heroes of the Storm? I don't know.
It's got too many words in it.
Yeah.
We need, I don't know, it will take time, but it will come.
More like Heroes of the Casual. Oh, sick burn!
Wow, what a good one.
Oh god, I am a wordsmith.
Should we go?
I think so. Impact is looking ready. I'm gonna check. Alicia's a bit old, so we need to make sure he's ready. He's got his hearing aid in. Excellent, fantastic. Let's rock and roll. Cool. It's gonna be on Habitation Station. They like this map, no doubt about that.
Yeah. So is Habitation like the starting map for every single series?
No, they just like it.
Okay.
They get to veto, and they have consistently vetoed. Well, there's one map in the rotation we haven't seen at all, which is probably going to upset the person that made it. But we see, it was God's Garden we haven't seen as of yet. We did see whatever the one that began with I was that I've completely forgotten. But outside of that,
it's kind of interesting to me that God's Garden is vetoed consistently because it's actually a Brood War map.
Yeah, that's probably exactly why it's vetoed. We
Like,
don't want any of that crap.
We played enough God's Garden years ago. We don't want to play it again. Like, please, just gentleman's agreement. Someone's gonna veto it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We're certainly going to see all the maps in the best of 5, I believe. I don't think they're allowed to veto that. So at least the finals, we will get to see God's Garden at least once. So we will see. All right, well, I am expecting great things from this. Alicia's going with his standard build here. He is in the northwest position playing Protoss in the red trunks, and he is versus Impact in the northeast position, who is in the blue trunks playing Zerg. This should be pretty wild. I expect this to be wild.
Forge Expand from Alicia. Meanwhile, Impact going for the hatchery first. Alicia is going to do a probe scout. He may choose to cannon rush, but he is revealing his probe. Once you get close enough to the hatchery, you can see the probe as a Zerg player. Impact, of course, sending a drone out to his natural, checks for those proxy pylons, uses one probe to just basically tag the probe and make sure it doesn't do anything that he doesn't see. Pool does go down now. And meanwhile, in Alicia, he's going for the Nexus, straight into a gateway. He knows he doesn't need that early cannon or any kind of early wall up because of this late pool timing.
Indeed. Olivia just, I was asked in the chat, is it best of 5 finals? No, best of 3. I was like, nope, it is now. If the guys are willing to stay up. Obviously, it's, we tried to do it at a friendly time for them. We don't want to keep them up too late. But if they're willing to do best of 5, we will play best of 5 final. I think it's only fair.
Yeah, I think that would be nice, especially, some of we were kind of talking about a little bit, some of the games early on in the tournament were from players who either hadn't played very much Legacy or haven't really been very active with StarCraft 2. A little bit of a mismatch, but I think the finals will probably be the best set of games.
I hope so, yeah.
Or of those best games, that would be good for both us and the viewers.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. People are like, did it freeze for a second? Yes, I alt-tabbed to tell Olivia off. That's why, sorry. Now, I'd ask you this, Forge Expand seems great in theory, and Alicia's been doing it a lot, but isn't that incredibly vulnerable to an early Ravager attack?
Yes, absolutely. Photon cannons, the Mothership Overcharge will deflect the Ravagers for a time. There's still not a really good way to engage the Nexus with that 13 range, but in Heart of the Swarm, there was no unit available early on in the game that could actually siege out photon cannons, that could actually siege out a gateway wall. Right, and that is absolutely an option in Legacy of the Void. I would not be surprised to see Impact perhaps go for some Ravagers at some point, but the idea of a one-base Ravager all-in is not unheard of. I could definitely see that being a thing. But of course, each player has their own style that they're going to bring in a way that they're going to interpret the new units and the new features that are available. Some players will be favoring that one base play. We see Impact, of course, droning up a fair amount before he adds that Roach Warren.
Yeah, and that gives time for the Stargate to come out from Alicia. I think that if you're going to do this, a Stargate is probably going to be your best follow-up. It gives you the option for a Void Ray if you realize that your opponent is going Ravager. Gives you the option for Oracle play, of course, and in this case, we're seeing a Phoenix out of Alicia.
Yeah, and he'll probably... That early Phoenix is nice. You can use it to basically remove all the Overlords from the map, force them to go home, put a little bit of pressure on, and of course Ravagers are not going to be very good against Phoenixes. Phoenixes are not going to be great against Ravagers either, but hitting Phoenixes with the Bilefire is going to be quite difficult.
Effectively impossible. I mean, you'd have to go to sleep if that was going to happen, I think, or just get incredibly lucky. The AoE on those things looks intimidating, but it's actually a very small area, so you've got to be incredibly precise. And hitting an air unit in a 3D game with a skill shot, very difficult. Very hard. It seems like you'd hit it, but then you end up missing the damn thing because that's not actually where it is on the ground. Because, of course, you had a slight isometric slant to the view, so it's a bit of a nightmare. I don't expect Impact to do great against it, but as you said, Phoenixes don't do much against Ravagers at all, and there's going to be 4 or 5 of them when the Ravagers attack. We'll see how much damage is done here.
Yeah, what he really wants is a Void Ray. The Void Ray will function kind of like a Banshee in that you can be near the Ravagers and deal damage to them without actually being in one place and forcing yourself to become vulnerable to those Ravagers. And now this is exactly what we were talking about. Ravagers coming in, they're going to be able to... Ooh, he gets a little over-aggressive here. Some of the Ravagers get caught at the top of the ramp.
Indeed. He's going to smash down those photon cannons very rapidly here. The sentries come into play, and as you said, that he was able to zone out some of those Ravagers. Brings down Bilefire right on top of some of those sentries that don't micro out of the way. He's actually cornering them to try and bring in more Bilefire. And yeah, that's a lot of damage done, and the Ravagers are still going. They're not quite dead as of yet. And if he gets a couple of good shots off on the mineral line, that might be nice. He gets a bit, he kills a few, but you've got to bear in mind just how large an investment this actually was, and we'll see at the end just how much fire. A couple more shots come down to try and catch some probes. The final Ravager dies, and this is what things look like at the end. The Zerg player lost more resources than the Protoss significantly in that attack.
Yeah, and this is, again, kind of a peculiar use of the Ravager, because like we've been saying before, the Ravager's main strength is its persistent siege ability, not its kind of head-on...
Rush up the ramp, yeah.
Yeah, break your face. And that's exactly how Impact was trying to use them, basically trying to leverage the fact that the Ravager's Bilefire breaks force fields, using that to break through and trying to crush Alicia. He also had the option of, just using Biofire and killing all the photon cannons and then slowly whittling away at him.
Yes, I think he was overly aggressive with that. He, as you said, should have picked things off. What are the Phoenixes going to do? They'll very, very slowly kill stuff. And now Impact knows about this Tempest, so he's going to have to do something about that. Thankfully, he likes Corruptors, so that might be an answer. Second Stargate going down behind us as well. But running right up the ramp with them and engaging head-on against Photon Cannons and the Photon Overcharge and the Phoenixes and the Gateway units that are there, evidently not the best idea. And while it looked like a lot of damage was done by the Zerg player, the investment in doing so was so high that it really didn't do the job. And now Alicia's getting to pick away with these Phoenixes, which have gone unchecked the entire game.
Yeah, Alicia has done a ton of damage with the Phoenixes. 8 workers lost, besides whatever military he may have been able to pick off. But Impact's Lings were able to deny Alicia's third base. The thing is, even though the damage wasn't super heavy from all the Ravagers, Alicia lost his entire ground army, and that basically made it impossible for him to hold the third base, even just against, 20 slow Lings was all it took to deny that.
Very true. However, we see Tempest on the way now. Spire is not even halfway done, so this is guaranteed damage. This Queen just gets dotted immediately, and he even dotted the lair, which is maybe not quite as efficient as one would hope.
Yeah, and there's a big question mark around these Tempests right now. We saw Ryung have a lot of trouble against them, and it just feels like ground units do not cut it. I can't think of a ground unit that really can deal with the Tempest, especially when there's the cliff available. If Marines or Hydras stim up or get close and actually fight the Tempest, they will win the head-on fight. But how do you make that happen when the Tempest can just fly away like this?
Huge Ling run by on the third base is going to absolutely cancel it and probably kill a bunch of probes that were trying to long-distance mine as well. Great answer to the Tempest, just don't be where the Tempests are. But we're going to see a lot of Corruptors come out here, and they should be able to fight this, even with 6 Phoenixes acting as a bit of a buffer. I'd say 13 Corruptors should do the job here, right?
Yeah, this many Corruptors, and we have to keep in mind that the Tempests do not actually attack Corruptors.
No, they don't.
Dot the Corruptors. But the dot is relatively slow acting compared to the amount of damage that most units do.
20 seconds, I think, to kill a Corruptor with that dot. Because it's, what, 10 damage a second, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, something like that. And
it's 500 damage over 50.
Yeah. For just a unit that's attacking, it's going to be doing way more damage than that. Yeah. And I'm not sure why Impact is waiting quite so long.
He wants, maybe he just didn't realize.
I'm not sure if he knows that Tempests don't attack air anymore.
Yeah, well, he does now, and he's suddenly got a lot more aggressive as a direct result of that, and the Phoenixes get murdered very fast. And yeah, some dots went down. That's going to kill a couple of Corruptors, but as long as Impact maintains like at least a 2-for-1 ratio of Corruptors versus Tempest, he should be fine. And he picks off one as well, and he might even get another before this goes back to base.
Yeah, and it looks like the Corruptors are right around the same speed as the Tempest. Of course, every time the Tempest turns around to put that dot down, the Corruptors are able to get a couple of shots off here. The Tempest dot ability does not have that much range.
No, you get dangerously close, and there's even a little bit of a turn rate on the Tempest, so microing them is a little trickier. The Corruptor's not the fastest unit ever, but it's a fairly durable unit, and yes, okay, a couple are going to pop. We get that. But replacing Corruptors is not that hard. And now they have additional utility. So even committing heavily to Corruptors is not, like, suicidal. In Heart of the Swarm, what would happen here is probably you just build a bunch of Gateway units and kill the Zerg player. But that doesn't work now.
Right, because the Corruptors can actually focus
they can fight
down a smaller number of ground units. Yeah. And it looks like for now, Impact is going to back up. You can see he's making additional Queens. And I think Transfuse is going to be a critical part of his strategy if he wants to really fight those Tempests. Something I'm kind of imagining Queen, Corruptor, Infestor as the composition to beat this mass Tempest army. The Infestors, if you can land 1 or 2 good Fungals, get the Corruptors on top. Transfuse, able to kind of overwhelm the dot from the Tempest. But for right now, it looks like Impact's just going very heavy Corruptors or Ling.
Yep, which is so far doing the job. Alicia is not moving out quickly enough at all, and is going to lose several Tempests as a direct result of that. He has dotted the majority of the Corruptor army up, but he's going to lose so many Tempests in the process, I don't think it really matters. He lost, what, 4 or 5 there by looks of it.
He lost... Both players are actually losing a lot of units here, and Impact really is just trying to make sure that this third base doesn't go down. Both players, you know, every unit he dots will die because he's not bringing queens to transfuse. The dot does more damage than the Tempest has life. What I think Alicia really could use right now are maybe some Void Rays or some Blink Stalkers. He needs something to zone out these Corruptors so that they can't just take the fight head-on against the Tempest here.
That's exactly what he's doing here, and I love the amount of harass that's being put on this third base. I'd actually like to see Impact turn around and corrupt that Nexus. I mean, I assume he knows that he can do that, so of course he does. He's used it before. Just turn around, kill, but he doesn't even see the need to do that because the Lings are enough. It's impossible to get anything close. Impact's able to zone that completely. The ground army of the Protoss consists of 6 Stalkers, which is nowhere near enough to do anything. So this has worked pretty well for Impact so far, and he's got 4 bases off the back of it. So even with the heavy Phoenix harass, he's still sitting on a very healthy drone count, and the probe count of Alicia is terrible. Now, bear in mind, the Natural's mined out. The main's mined out. He has no mining right now. Absolutely not. And Impact knows that. He spots where the Nexus is and he's like, I'm going to kill it. I'm going to make sure you don't get to mine anymore.
Yeah. And you can see he's just building more Lings and more Corruptors. And I guess the Ling part of the composition here is to basically discourage Alicia from making Stalkers. He knows that Stalkers are the biggest response to a large number of Corruptors. Being able to come in, blink, move around, just deny them without really taking any damage. But Lings, of course, are incredibly strong against a big group of Stalkers.
Yep. Corruption goes down, the Caustic Vial or whatever it is, the Fleet Beacon is going to pop pretty quickly, and it does. There we go. Caustic Spray is the name of that. He's going to kill Stargate as well, which is great. As you said, the Void Ray is a great answer here. If he can't build them, then that's going to be crippling for Alicia. I mean, Alicia is in a lot of trouble here. He has to establish his base, but there's a huge amount of Lings coming in here. Looks like Force Field should be able to save this, but if he can't mine, he's absolutely dead.
He needs something to deal with, some response to the Corruptors in his main. These Corruptors are literally just killing everything.
Yeah, and there's 27 of them. He's been able to mass them, and I think that Alicia's response was too slow. Like, I think as soon as he saw that many Corruptors, or even like this, the first wave, he should have immediately switched to Void Rays. Because you can't fight Tempest. Tempest can't fight that many Corruptors. They couldn't do it in Heart of the Swarm. They certainly can't do it now. So don't even try. Get some Void Rays. I mean, it's not like Protoss doesn't have an answer to this. They absolutely do. Zerga's been complaining about it for the last 2 years. It's the Void Ray, you know?
Yeah, I think the Void Rays, having a healthy number of Void Rays here with Stalker support would do very well, because, you know, the Corruptors seem very different with that new Bile, Caustic Spray, their Vomit attack, but their anti-air capabilities are absolutely unchanged. It's still the unit that we knew from Heart of the Swarm, which means that Void Rays are going to be very effective against them.
Yes, absolutely. And Impact has no armor upgrades. Void Rays would cut through that effectively, and I mean, you'd expect air upgrades in an army like this, but Alicia's never really got the opportunity to do it. You know, we can call Alicia out for that, but when would he have had the chance? Like, he has never been able to establish his third base. He's only just got it now, and it doesn't matter because all the other stuff is gone. Oh, Bile coming down. Whoa! Watch out! He hurts his own Corruptors with that. Got to be a little bit careful. Destroys the force field. But this is a devastating push here from Impact that is going to be extremely hard to deal with. The Bile comes down, lands on top of the Tempest. All the Tempests die. The middle of this army is about to explode. Alicia is not happy whatsoever. We just passed 30,000 concurrent viewers, and there's the GG. Impact takes the first map of this best of 3. After a dodgy start, Alicia looked very strong in the early game, but that was a nice comeback from Impact and not a fast enough response from Alicia.
Yeah, I think the Tempest at first seemed like they were doing tons of damage. There was no Spire done yet. You know, he's picking off a lot of units with his Phoenixes, denying bases, things like that. But as soon as the Corruptors came out, Alicia, you know, the game is new. The units are different. Nobody really has a good handle, and Alicia was on the wrong end of the guessing game. He was like, well, Tempest can attack Corruptors, and maybe I can bleed my opponent out. And Impact was like, no, no, you cannot. And he was right. You know, with the superior economy that he had, he was able to make so many Corruptors and just overwhelm that Tempest count, keeping Alicia on 2 bases that whole time, and eventually just overrun him.
Yeah, and massing Corruptors is not as awful as it once was. You know, having a lot of those units means that you can basically fly into a Protoss base and you can kill a building. Because nothing is going to shoot down 27 corruptors. Like, they're too tough. You can kill key tech structures with it, which I think is going to be yet another use for corruptors that people are going to realize. Impact demonstrated it perfectly there. He said, right, what can stop me right now? Bunch of void rays. Let's kill the starports so he can't build any. And, Bob's your uncle. Nice and easy. And ultimately, Alicia was dead like 10 minutes before that happened, I think.
Yeah. And we're actually on the map.
God's Garden, yeah.
That we thought we would never see.
We are here. We absolutely are here on God's Garden with Axiom Alicia, who is trailing one game in this best-of-3 series in the semifinals of the Axiom Legacy The Void Fan Mod Tournament. He is in the southeast position in the blue trunks playing Protoss versus his opponent, who evidently knows what he is doing in this, and using the double extractor trick to go up to 16 supply, which is interesting considering the way that Legacy of the Void now works. I wonder if that's going to be a thing. We have Axiom Impact in the red trunks playing Zerg.
Yes, and we should expect to see a pretty macro-oriented game on this map. You do have, for those of you who aren't familiar, this map is very similar to Alterzim Stronghold in that you have an in-base expansion that is basically immune to everything. And then, of course, you have an expansion out in front of your natural. Mm-hmm. And we do see Alicia putting a gateway at the top of his ramp, but he's going to be doing a gasless expand. Maybe making a Zealot for early pressure? I'm not sure why he's going gateway instead of forge. Maybe he's just planning to get his tech going. He feels like he doesn't actually need the extra security that a cannon would offer. Yeah,
he may also be thinking that Ravager Rush is a possibility, so it might be a consideration of his that he thinks, you know what, photon cannons are maybe not the way to go here. Maybe, as you said, oh, well, he's going to build a forge anyway, so maybe he just gets a slightly later one.
Yeah, and this will allow him to get a bit of an earlier cybernetics core, because imagine if the forge was first and that the gateway was building now. He wouldn't be able to put the core down until this forge gateway thing finishes. But
yeah,
actually, it looks like he might not put the... Well, whatever. It doesn't really matter. 3 hatches coming out from Impact. He's going to get a spawning pool afterwards, so going for an extremely economic opening. And no gases in sight, so he's probably going to be making a ton of drones coming up soon.
That should work. The Gateway Forge, there is the Cybercore coming down behind this, so Alicia maybe has some pressure options here and there. He could do something, but he's not putting himself in too aggressive of a stance early on.
Yeah. Both players won't really be getting much done until they have at least gotten up to a decent amount of workers. You put that Nexus down in your natural, you're not really going to cut probes this early on, because then the Nexus kind of goes to waste. Probe does get into Axiom Impact's base, and he's going to be taking a look here, see all 3 hatches, and that's going to give him a much better idea of what he's up against.
Indeed. So we may see a slower game here, although we may see the Protoss player just decide to do some kind of 2-base play. It's possible. Robo is coming down, so this is a little bit of a different approach. It could be, again, for disruptors. Alicia was able to use those effectively against Maya. It could do the job.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we'll have to see what his decision here. The Disruptor Harass is... It's one of the best harass options that the Protoss player has now, and it's a lot stronger than most of the harass options that existed in Heart of the Swarm. Compare Disruptor Harass to Widowmine Harass, and they feel kind of comparable. The Disruptor is a bigger investment, but the Disruptor has a bit more potential, I think, in general.
I think you need to commit quite a lot to making Disruptor Harass work, particularly if you're going to invest that Warp Prism in there to do it. But
yep.
That thing is going to kill multiple workers, and I don't think there's the speed at which you would have to split to prevent that from happening is massive. You need to see it coming in. If you don't see it coming in, you're going to lose a few workers to it. Whereas with a Widowmine, that's not necessarily the case. You're probably most of the time these days when we see people Widowmine drop the mineral line in a professional game, it kills 1 worker, like 90% of the time.
Yeah, that is often the case, and it's much harder to make that situation happen against a Disruptor.
Yes.
But he has not started the Robotics Bay yet, so it actually looks like he's going to be going very hard on some gateway pressure here. He's got 4 gateways coming, Warp Gate is about to finish, and he's actually going to be making some Immortals, so he might transition into an Immortal drop.
And I'm intrigued to see what the Immortal does now, because the Immortal is less of a hard counter now. It still fires very, very heavily against armored units, but the shield is now an activatable barrier, essentially, which means that for a time, the Immortal can tank anything that's thrown its way, including units which traditionally would be very effective against it. But when that shield is not available, the Immortal is perhaps a much less desirable unit in certain circumstances.
Right. So it's there's a lot of decision making about hitting timings when your opponent doesn't have that shield up, but it may not even get to that point. There are more zealots coming in.
A lot of zealots. The queen count, though, is insane. It's at 6. I mean, that should be enough to fend this off.
Yeah. The Warp Prism is going to get pushed out here. He can't bring it back to save those zealots because he doesn't want to lose it to the queens, but he's going to bring it up top now and maybe warp in some zealots, cutting off those queens from the main. And
that might do the job. I was hoping to maybe see a sentry warp in there to actually force field that. That would be pretty neat, but he may not have had the gas for it. Actually, he did. Definitely had the gas for it, which is a bit weird. But he's going to lose those zealots now. How much damage was done? 11 workers were killed. I mean, it was a significant commitment, and it's continued to be a commitment. Actually, he cancels out and gets out of there. Oh, the Warp Prism's down!
Does fall. And that's a pretty big deal for him. He's now adding additional sentries at home. Second Immortal is on the way, and additional gateways are being added. So, oh no, actually, a third Immortal is is on the way. So he may be going for just a big Immortal bust at the front here, but he doesn't have the Warp Prism for an aggressive warp in. He doesn't have a pylon, so I'm not sure how effective this is really going to be right now.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried for Alicia, honestly. His economy is not very good at all. The resources lost look very, very even, but you can consider where those, what was lost there. Yes, he kills 11 workers, but Impact's still on 62. He's now building 12 Ravagers. But I don't know if that's actually the answer to what's coming at him. Maybe Alicia does actually have the army. The force fields are not going to do the job because of the Ravagers, but the Immortals are going to be significant against these units.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen here. I feel like Ravagers, the big strength of this army is the force fields, and I don't think he has quite enough units here. Some Biofire does go down, and it looks like one of the Immortals is going to get picked off. So many queens there. Mothership Core does go down.
Alicia's not using the barrier by the looks of it. Please tell me he knows. I don't think he knows. He's not using barrier at all, which means that the army is getting completely obliterated. GG. A swift 2-0. I don't know if the barrier would have mattered. I think the army was just too big, even if he had activated that.
Yeah, he committed a lot of zealots, and Impact went for a bit of a risky opening with the 3-hatch before pool. Very greedy with so many probes, and just was not punished enough by Alicia. And then the follow-up there, I don't think that was really ever going to work. He needed to do a lot more damage with that Warp Prism or have more units or something, but too far behind at that point.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal there. Honestly, as you said, the 3-hatch before pull was so good, and the harassment came so late. It doesn't really matter if you've got a few Immortals at that point. You have 30 less workers than your opponent. Your army's not going to be big enough, and those sentries, useless. The Ravagers are going to obliterate anything that comes in your direction force field-wise. So I think that the composition, Immortal Sentry is a dead composition now against Zerg, in my opinion. It's not effective. You have to come up with something else.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the like 8 to 12 Sentry-based compositions working with Ravagers in the game. I can see Sentries, 2 to 4 Sentries, let them bank energy, use them strategically, but this idea where you can just force field out everything is not going to work against a Ravager.
And I am very glad, because force fielding out everything is boring to watch and stupid to play against, in my honest opinion, so I'm fine with that. Hell, even Terran have a way of dealing with that now, because we got Herx, so great. Get rid of the Sentry. It's a boring unit. Get rid of it. Don't like it. Not at all. Okay, we are going to take a very short break, folks, if you don't mind. And then we'll be back with the next semi-final. Who will go on to face Impact? We are guaranteed to not have Mirror as our final, which is great. We're going to either have a TVZ or a TVP. Will it be Crank or Heart? Will Crank's experience in the Legacy of the Void mod overcome Heart's current form, which is world-class? We'll find out after the break.